Yay Networks.
Welcome to another episode of Plastic Surgery Uncensored. I'm your host, Dr. Rady Rahban, and we have a really fun episode for you today. I was a guest on the A Sandwich and Some Lovin podcast with Kellie Rasberry and Alan Evans, and we just basically chatted about plastic surgery, their own plastic surgery experiences, and then we answered a bunch of Q&As from their listeners. I think it was really fun and interesting. Here's the episode.
Live from Beverly Hills.
From Beverly Hills.
Isn't that crazy? We'd like to welcome one of our fellow Yay Networks podcast family, Dr. Rady Rahban from Plastic Surgery Uncensored.
Welcome, Dr. Rahban.
I like that. I like the cheer. I got to get that for my podcast. Wow.
I
love it.
I am so excited you're here, Dr. Rahban, because I could use you for my own selfish reasons, but Alan and I both went on our Instagram accounts and we asked our listeners to submit their questions to us for you, and they have a ton of them.
Lots of questions.
Narrowed them down as best as we could. But first, Plastic Surgery Uncensored, you are a very successful Beverly Hills plastic surgeon. Tell us a little bit about your background and why you decided to do a podcast in the first place.
Awesome. First of all, thank you guys for having me. I've followed you guys and I've listened to you guys, and I know how awesome you are. So to be here is an honor.
Thanks.
Plastic surgery. I mean, it's one of those things, I call it a double-edged sword. It's amazing and dangerous simultaneously. As you know, anything in life that's worth doing or having or experiencing can go terribly good and terribly bad. And plastic surgery is the same thing. And I don't know, I consider myself a little bit old-fashioned in my approach to plastic surgery. I've been in practice for over 15 years. I did all my training in California, undergrad at UCLA, medical school at UCSD, all my training in plastic surgery at USC. So a true Southern Cali boy. And I'm from Beverly Hills, so I naturally came back to Beverly Hills. I know that people think it's the mecca of plastic surgery, and for all intents and purposes, it may be, but with that comes a lot of shady shit. And there's a lot of things about plastic surgery and the Beverly Hills plastic surgery world that give me the EBGBs. So, I've been in practice, and over the last 15 years, I've unfortunately sort of developed this specialization in revisions and redos and people that have been botched.
Yeah.
And it's sad. And it's frustrating and it's disappointing and it's preventable. And so naturally over the years, you see 1, you see 10, you see 20, you see the same patterns over and over again. And you kind of want to run out to a rooftop and just yell like, hey, you guys, it doesn't have to be this way. And so my rooftop is Plastic Surgery Uncensored. I started the podcast a few years back, and it has a singular one goal. And the goal is to provide authentic, transparent information to the masses about the entire spectrum of the aesthetic world, from social media, apps and manipulation to Photoshop to destination plastic surgery, all the things that I call them the slippery slopes of plastic surgery. And, that's sort of been my mission here, is to see if I can prevent people from going down the wrong path. And being on shows like you is really critical, because we get the information out to the masses.
Yeah. And you mentioned social media, because I do follow your Instagram. A lot of people, I was telling Alan, are obsessed with Dr. Pimple Popper. Right. I don't want to see that. I'm addicted to the before and afters. And you have the most incredible before and afters. If y'all want to follow Dr. Rahban, it's just his name, Dr. Rady Rahban, Rahban. Fascinating. You'll be on there for hours. And you mentioned social media, I think, has had a huge impact on what people come into your office wanting you to perform some miracle, when a lot of what they're seeing on the internet is a lie in the first place. And you just in one of your recent posts showed a woman just sitting there with a filter, transforming her hair, her face, everything about her. And it was all fake. How much has that impacted what you see walking through the doors of your practice in Beverly Hills?
I mean, I think it's our newest epidemic. It's not just that social media is eroding plastic surgery. It's eroding our culture. And so definitely when it comes to beauty and aesthetics, these social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, etc., they've done incredible, have had a great benefit to plastic surgery in that it's up, I don't know, a gazillion times compared to where it was 10 years ago. But by the same notion, people are lost. So you have all these individuals seeing these images of individuals whom they'd like to replicate or look like. So, of course, if it was doable or it was real, maybe we could aspire. Maybe we could say, hey, I really love this person's nose. Is this something that we can kind of look towards? But the reality is, as you mentioned today, the overwhelming, I want to say somewhere upwards of 90% of influencers, and I do that in quotations, are not the images they portray. They don't have the hair, they don't have the eyes, they don't have the jaw, they don't have the skin, they don't have the breast, they don't have the waist, they don't have the butt. And so the argument is, so what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that is they're portraying these images, individuals, and we would like to assume it's just young people. No, it has nothing to do with young people like, 13-year-olds. No, there's 20-year-olds, 28-year-olds, 45-year-olds, 60-year-old people that are seeing these images, and it's causing a great deal of anxiety, disappointment. And then they run out and they go to a whole host of cockamamie providers. For every one bona fide, board certified plastic surgeon, there are probably 4 people who are not even trained in the arena of plastic surgery. And they're performing this. So you have this perfect storm, right? You got influencers creating images that aren't real, vulnerable people looking at the images, running out to greedy physicians who are doing botched surgery. And there you have it. That's
Sounds
our
like
new
a
world.
recipe for disaster.
Have
It
you
is,
ever
Alan.
had someone come into your office and say, you need to go see a mental health therapist before you come to see me? I mean, sometimes don't you think you have to have your mind right before you go under the knife?
Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. I think the issue is, we always say, oh, what about body dysmorphia? I'm not talking about the severe cases of people who are ill.
Yeah.
I'm talking about people like you and me, regular people who have regular jobs, who are totally otherwise normal, slowly getting warped and pulled into this vortex of social media. You think that it would be like, oh, this person is so, jaded. They need to go. No, these are normal people. They have falsified images.
Yeah. That's why I refuse to use any filters on my social media, because reason being is I don't want people to meet me in person and be like, ugh. I want them to see what I really look like and then meet me in person and say, oh, you're better than I thought.
And we've seen some of those filters, like we don't even recognize
some of our
friends.
friends.
Yeah.
Some of
I
our
mean, we don't
friends
even recognize them.
Well, they'll post our pictures on their social media and they'll filter the crap out of us. We're like, don't do that.
Yeah, it doesn't even look like us.
And people are like, oh, Kelly, you look beautiful. I'm like, but I don't look like that, anyway.
Yeah.
So we've already covered, Alan. Now you would think Alan would not be that interested in plastic surgery because, typically men are like, oh, that's a woman thing. But actually, Dr. Rahban, more and more men, they're falling victim to what they're seeing on social media as well. But not just that, they decide, you know what, just because I'm getting older, I want to, keep looking good and feeling good as I get older. So more and more men are getting plastic surgery, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would say definitely, I would say 20-25% of my practice are men.
That's huge.
Yeah. And it's not because they drank the Kool-Aid. Remember, the overwhelming majority of plastic surgery is positive.
Yeah.
It's enhancing. It brings a sense of self-confidence. It makes you feel good about yourself. It enhances your relationships with your loved ones. So it's for good reasons. And what's happened is over the last 10 to 15 years, the taboo around plastic surgery has been lifted. And more men have the dialogue amongst other men like, oh, yeah, you look good, man. Oh, yeah, I did my eyelids. Oh, I get Botox once in a blue moon, so on and so forth. So absolutely, it's definitely more common than ever before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one really big thing I guess I did this year for my 50th, Dr. Rahban, is I had a neck lift. So
Sweet.
that is, yeah.
The first time he's ever.
First time I've ever.
I love that. That's
told our audience
awesome.
about this, but Yeah, this was several months ago, and just real quick, part of it was for my 50th. Part of it was it's so subtle, and I had a wonderful experience with my doctor. It was just an outstanding experience, but it's so subtle that really I'm the only one that notices. Nobody that I know has come up to me and said there's something different about you, but I know. But once I told somebody that's pretty close to me that I had the procedure done, she goes, "Oh yeah, now I can really see your jawline looks more chiseled, and you have an Adam's apple. Wow, didn't know you had an Adam's apple."
Yeah, it was a very subtle, but that's the point of plastic surgery. I think you should still look like yourself, just look fresher and you want to still look like you.
Yeah, but it was more for me. It was more, I saw my profile on some pictures, and
Yeah.
I guess I was a little self-conscious about how I looked in certain pictures. And
I told you if you
Kellie
didn't get
told
it,
me,
it was fine, but I
Yeah.
want him to be happy because
Yeah,
he's, and so I encouraged you.
yeah, no, Kellie was very encouraging about it. I did it. I had a wonderful experience, and I'm still, I guess I'm still in the healing stage because there's a little numbness, and I've talked to my doctor about it. He said it does take, could take from 6 to 9 months for all the numbness to go away. But yeah, we were talking about social media earlier. That's kind of how I was even started to investigate it, was seeing those before and after pictures. But I doubled down and I talked to a friend who actually went to this doctor, and I said, "Hey, how did you like it? How was the experience? Is it, as good as the pictures look like online?" And she had a wonderful experience. So I really trusted her. And again, just I'm glad I did it.
So listen, Al, that's amazing. And what I love about that is from A to Z, that is the storybook or the ideal plastic surgery experience. So where does that start from? It starts from within. You're a guy, you're good looking, you have a lovely partner, you're happy, everything is good, you're successful. Does that mean that you should just not give a shit? And I don't care. It doesn't matter that my neck is horrible. Why? You eat well, you work out, you get a haircut, you put on deodorant. So number one, it came from within. Two, you had a supportive partner. It wasn't that they pushed you to do it, and it wasn't that they tried to discourage you from doing it. They said, if it makes you happy, I'm behind you. Three, you did your homework. You didn't just, look online and see some guy with an ad or some guy doing some kind of shenanigans, dancing on TikTok or something, and pick a doctor. You vetted them. You asked people that you knew. Three, you went through with it. And I'm sure this person was well trained. And now you're the beneficiary of it. And that is, you feel great. And I am certain that the ripple effect from you feeling great is palpable from the people around you, even if it's so subtle that no one knows why you're so happy. It's great.
You summed it up right there.
And when you see the before and after picture, because I looked at him, I was like, I don't see the problem, but you do. And now when I see the side by side before and after, I'm like, oh, I really can see the difference. But I'm just so happy with finally sharing that.
Yeah,
it's great.
Speak your truth, honey.
Well, honestly, Kellie's a really big Troy Aikman fan, and she always talks about how he has a chiseled jaw.
Can cut glass.
Yeah, so I wanted a chiseled jaw just like
It's
Troy
all
Aikman.
Kelly's fault. She creates. Oh my God, Kellie.
Just
I know, right? Well, my plastic surgery experience. That's really why I got on Twitter many, many years ago. I'm on a nationally syndicated radio show that Alan always teases me about, the Kid Craddock morning show. And I was going to have a mommy makeover. And so I'd never gotten on Twitter before. I said, well, I'll just tweet about the experience. And that's how I got on it. And I wanted to be really honest about it. And I did the full tummy tuck, the breast augmentation. And I went in, and this is a great doctor. He's known for his boobs. There's always that one plastic surgeon that's known for one thing, and he's known for his boobs. So I got a good set of boobs. They were just way bigger than I expected. I thought they were going to come out C's, and they came out double D F's.
Yeah.
I was
not uncommon. Not uncommon.
And it's really interesting, Dr. Rahban, because I got like 350 cc's, if anybody knows what I'm talking about. And my girlfriend got the same amount of cc's, and she was a really full C, and she looked beautiful, but I came out gigantic. So I lived with it for about 2 years, and I finally went to a friend and I said, I'm just so unhappy. She said, well, then do something about it. So I called my plastic surgeon because I hated to tell him I'm not happy with your work. He was more than happy to go back in, give me a reduction of my augmentation. And now I'm the C that I always wanted to be.
I mean, I think that the reality is that plastic surgery, as you guys are describing, has so many different experiences. And I do believe that the overwhelming majority of experiences can be positive.
And you did mention that it's not uncommon when women come out of plastic surgery for a breast augmentation, they're way bigger than they thought they were going to be. Why is that?
So someone comes into my office today. I had a patient that I did a consult for. She came in and she said, listen, I just feel like after I had 3 kids, I breastfed, my breasts are much smaller. I'd like to be fuller. Okay, straightforward. All right, what size do you think you want to be? And this is the catch right here. So pay attention. I want to be a full C.
That's what I said.
So the assumption there is that full C is some established size. Like I'm 5'7". Well, 5'7" is 5'7". It's measurable. I weigh 140. It's measurable. You and I both know that full C is completely ambiguous. Are we talking about a 32 full C? Are we talking Victoria's Secret, padded, not padded, underwire? Are we talking that you're filling the cup? Are we talking you're 5'11" and 120 pounds, or 5'2" and 140 pounds? So full C is a concept.
Oh.
So unlike other measurements that are very accurate, full Cs are not. So what do? I have patients go through hundreds of photos and tell me and show me their full C. Because if you leave it up to me, I'm going to give you my full C.
Mm-hmm.
What if my full C and your full C aren't the same? Well, that happens to be the case in like so many cases. So the fact that you went in and got much larger isn't necessarily that your doctor was like a bad guy, or he was like, oh, I want to make her into a porn star. You guys, you're speaking Chinese, he's speaking Japanese.
Okay.
So every time I do a consultation where size is of concern, we bring in a ton of photos whereby which that person can show me, and I'll be like, whoa, that's not a full C. That is definitely no full C. I don't know what you're talking about, but if that's what you like, that's what you like. But that's not what I would have considered a full C. And so what it does is it levels out the playing field. So that requires a little more time on behalf of the physician. That's not the patient's fault. That's the doctor's fault.
Okay, good to know.
That's good to
okay.
know.
Well, we have a ton of listener questions we can get through. And what I did was I went through all of them and I kind of gathered them up from top to bottom. Like I started with the face and worked my way down.
Let's do it.
Face down. So you want to go back and forth a little bit, honey?
Yeah, sure.
Why don't you start?
Let me start. I see a good one here. Dr. Rahban, why do some women look amazing? Kyle Richards.
Yeah, because I watch Real Housewives. This is from a listener though, and I know what she's talking about. Kyle Richards just did the Halloween movie and says she got her nose broken while filming and had to get her nose fixed. Whether or not she did or not, it's her. I don't care if she had a nose job or not. But she looks incredible.
Why do some women look amazing, Kyle Richards, and so many look puffy and so bad?
So, I mean, I think it's a really general term, but I think what they're referring to is, why is it some people get plastic surgery and look great and some people get plastic surgery and they look awful?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's simple. Why does it that your aunt's casserole tastes amazing and your cousin's casserole tastes like shit? Because we have different chefs, same recipe, different chefs.
Yeah.
I hate all casseroles, but
well, yeah. I figured much, but the point is that there are so many variables. Number one is the starting anatomy. Some people, their anatomy is more favorable than others. So if you do the same procedure on 2 different people, which by the way, it's impossible to do the same procedure, but if you were in a vacuum, one would look better than the other because their starting point is better. 2, we have different skill sets. So certain surgeons are more talented than other surgeons. 3, it has to do with conservative or aggressive. There's a lot that has to be done with how much salt are you adding. The reason why you love your neck lift is because it's subtle to you.
Mm-hmm.
Subtle is a relative term. To someone, it may be severe. To someone, it'd be like, what a waste of money, Alan.
Mm-hmm.
But the point being is that to the average person, there is a point at which something is too much. And many times these plastic surgeries that are being done, the nose job, the breast aug, the tummy tuck, are just overdone, hence creating that weird wax figure-y look. So it's a complicated question, but it has a lot to do with all these variables coming together. And that's why you go to a special hair salon to get your hair done, because your friend's hair looks terrible.
Speaking of the Real Housewives, it's like I don't know if they all go to the same plastic surgeon, especially the Real Housewives of New York. They've all got the most fascinating, beautiful facelifts. And facelifts terrify me because That's major, major surgery. Don't they like cut your skin and tack it behind your ears? Isn't there something to do with
Yeah, I mean,
that?
you're absolutely right. Facelifts should be respected because they can go terribly wrong. We know
Yeah.
so many celebrities that are over pulled, and a really, really eloquent facelift does require for you to elevate the muscles of the face, elevate the skin of the face. So it's a really delicate surgery, and you're absolutely right. You have to be judicious in how you deliver it. So yes, you're lifting the face. You're pulling on the skin.
And how do you know? I mean, these procedures are so expensive. I mean, is there like a ballpark that you should kind of, I mean, how do you know you're getting the right surgery for the money you're paying? You know what I'm saying? The
Yeah, of
value.
course. I totally understand. And so, it's again very geographically driven. You might
Yes.
find an amazing, amazing surgeon in Oklahoma, and that surgeon will charge you, let's hypothetically say $8,000, and then you go to New York City and it's $27,000.
Right.
That's the same thing as like right now, gas in California is $6 a gallon. That's insane. It's the same gas you guys are pumping there. So one of them is location. The other is you get a ballpark. I have a saying: if you pay a little, you get a little. If you pay a lot, you don't necessarily get a lot. So paying low priced or low budget plastic surgery is always bad. It's always bad. There's always something that's being shortcutted. The facility, the anesthesia providers, the equipment, the time, the energy. So if you're going in and you find the national average for a facelift is 15 grand, I make it up.
Uh-huh.
And you find a doctor and he's like, I'll do it for 5.
No.
100%, it's bad.
Yeah.
Now, conversely, if you meet a plastic surgeon and they say it's $54,000 for your facelift, does that mean that it's 4 times better than the person who's charging 15? Not at all. So the bottom is the problem, the top is not.
No, I totally agree with that. When I was doing my research, my doctor was definitely not the least expensive doctor. But I guess I'm a tattoo aficionado, Dr. Rahban, and I kind of equated it a little bit to that. You never go in for a really cheap tattoo because you're going to get a really cheap tattoo. I totally agree, though. The guys who charge the most,
it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
Because it's the same concept. It's artistry. It doesn't matter if you cut hair,
yeah,
you do tattoos, or you do plastic surgery. The concept is the same. An individual is going to do something that requires effort, energy, and attention to detail. If they do it cheap, they're in a rush. If they pay more, they take their time. Just simple.
I love that.
All right. This listener said, I'm 48. My eyelids are getting droopy. What are my eyelid surgery or treatment options?
So eyelids are actually very interesting. They're one of the earlier things that change in our face. So we're 30, we're untouchable, we're young, we're awesome, we're at bars. We get to our late 30s and enter our early 40s. And one day we look in the mirror and we're like, what the? And things are changing. And one of the things that changes very quickly, you don't suddenly get this turkey neck. That doesn't happen till you're in your 50s. But in your 40s, you start to have some duplication of your upper eyelids. Your upper eyelids start getting a little thicker and they touch. And if you put on makeup, if you're a female, you're going to feel it smudging. Your mascara is going to touch your eyelashes, is going to touch your brow, and your lower eyelids start getting a little puffy. So one of the earliest signs of aging actually are the eyes. And so eyelids are straightforward in that there's not a lot of other things you can do besides surgery, like a blepharoplasty, but they're not simple in that the anatomy is very delicate. And so there is like the upper eyelid, it's surgery or nothing. The lower eyelid, you can dance around with a little bit of filler to camouflage judiciously, but ultimately you're going to get down to surgery again. But because the eyelids, you can just look at your eyelids, they're delicate, the anatomy is so frail, it's around your eyeball. So you just have to be careful. Yeah. But
my aunt had the bags removed, and it literally took 20 years off of her. It was incredible.
For sure.
For
sure. So eyelids, it's generally surgical intervention.
Mm-hmm. Well, we had so many about noses.
My favorite.
So many. Is that still number one? That was
It's
number one for the longest time.
Number 1 is breast dog. Number 2 is lipo. Number 3 is nose job.
Oh, so it got bumped down a few.
It's my favorite procedure, so I'm biased.
Why?
Okay,
Because
well.
you think it's so life-changing, or what about it? Or it's
Well,
just the artistry of it?
I just did 2 today. I love it because it's the most challenging operation to perform as a surgeon. So it really, really tests your limits. Number 2, it can transform literally someone into a supermodel, because it turns out that the overwhelming majority of people that are average looking, like, she's fine, he's okay. And then if you were to analyze them and break it down, their eyelids and their eyebrows and their lips aren't really all that an issue. But if you alter their nose to create balance, it's as if you unlock this incredible algorithm, and all of a sudden it's exponentially more attractive. So if you're a plastic surgeon and you can sprinkle fairy dust, you're going to want to do like the holy moly kind of surgery. And to me, every time a cast comes off, it's like a eureka moment. So that's why.
Wow.
It's so interesting, though. You remember the most notorious nose job that was actually a great job, but ended up kind of messing up her career, was Jennifer Grey from Dirty Dancing. Remember, she got a nose job and it was a beautiful nose job, but she completely looked like a different person. Remember
Powerful. Yeah. I mean, look, Barbara Streisand, they've done 1 million interviews with her. She has a quintessential Jewish Ashkenazi nose. She was in Hollywood at a time where plastic surgery in women like Marilyn Monroe, it was quite common. And many a time, and if I'm not mistaken, she attributed it to her agent, that she never operated on her nose in fear of losing her image and character and recognizability. And there's no doubt about it. If you have such a distinct nose, it's going to change you so dramatically. But in most instances, people start early, right? They don't get a nose job generally in their 60s. They do it when they're like 22, 25, 31. You haven't really even established your career. No one really even knows you. So yeah, it's powerful.
Well, this person had an interesting question. Is it possible to show a patient an after image before rhinoplasty? Are you able to show them what their nose would look like realistically?
So it's awesome. It's like these people like knew I was coming on the show. They've been following me. It's like one of my biggest pet peeves is Photoshop photomorph. So the answer is the overwhelming majority of rhinoplasty surgeons will absolutely 100% give you a photomorph or Photoshop version of your nose. Absolutely. You go in, hi, Dr. Rahban, how you doing? Good, how are you? What's the matter? My nose is big. It doesn't fit my face. It's not cute. I want something natural, something elegant, something that just looks symmetrical, all these ambiguous, vague words that nobody knows what the hell it means. And then lo and behold, we pop you on a monitor and magic. Lower your bridge, raise your tip, narrow your nostrils, straighten your nose, and you're just mesmerized. And we print it, and then we put our logo there. And then in super fine print, we write, results may vary. And what does that mean? It means you will not look like this. So then naturally, if you are an astute observer, your next question should be, okay, wait, so I'm not going to look like this. No. So why are you giving this to me? I'm giving it to you because we being doctors, know that you, patients, have one major obstacle in performing a rhinoplasty. It will not be the money. It will not be the recovery. It will not be time off work. It will be fear. Fear is the greatest obstacle to overcome for rhinoplasty. Fear of what? Fear of looking like Michael Jackson. Fear of looking like a horrific nose job. So we know that patients, if they can overcome their fear of looking botched, they don't give a shit how much it costs. So how do we get you over that fear? Well, we just give you a fake photo of yourself. You stick it on your refrigerator, you look at it, you hem and haw. Half of my practice is noses. I've never done a photomorph in 15 years.
Oh,
it's so misleading and so disingenuous. Now, if I could produce the image I created, well, then sure, of course, I would think it's very useful. But the image will not come out that way. And then you have no recourse and you'll be misled. So the answer is I don't do it, but it's commonly done.
All right. But don't trust it because results may vary.
You got it.
Gonna move down to breasts, honey. Are you a breast man?
Oh yeah, yeah. I like talking
Are you
about
really?
breasts, like
What are you?
looking at breasts.
No,
Like,
as far as like when you looked at, are you a breast man, leg man? What are you? I know you're not a butt man because I have no butt, Dr. Rahban.
I'm just a body man.
Oh, that's good to know.
Just
All
a,
right.
a good body man.
We're going to move down the body now to the breastises.
Okay. How about we have a listener who says, I'm 43 and would like a breast augmentation. Is there any reason I wouldn't be able to? Kind of a general question, but
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is what she's asking is, are there any contraindications to getting a breast aug? So first of all, there's no age limit. There is no age limit for plastic surgery. I have done a rhinoplasty in a 65-year-old. I have done a tummy tuck in a 70-year-old. I have done a facelift in a 90-year-old. What does that demonstrate? It demonstrates the only thing that matters is your health. If you are a 90-year-old woman who walks 10 miles a day, you are a better candidate than the 60-year-old woman who's got diabetes, had a stroke last year, and is 100 pounds overweight. So age is truly just a number. It's your medical condition. So the answer to the question is no, there's no contraindication at 40 or 50 to do a breast. It makes no difference. It has to do with your overall general health.
Well, on the flip side, this other listener is 27 years old and wants to know if is that too early for a breast reduction because she's heard mixed opinions on that.
So, I mean, I think the thing about breast surgery, and I'll elaborate on breast reductions, at an earlier age is the idea of having children. So if an individual, so this is kind of one of those personal things. If an individual wants to have children and wants to breastfeed, then when you do a breast reduction, you're going to impact the ability to breastfeed, not so much with a breast augmentation. So the question is, how much are you suffering? I have done many a breast reduction in a 16-year-old patient. Tiny girl on the volleyball team, J breast, can't change clothes, won't get in a bikini, won't go to the mall with her friends. So if you're 16 and your life is dominated by your large breast, then it's going to override the possibility or potential to have breastfeeding. But if you're a 27-year-old woman and you're married and you're about to have kids in the next year, well, go have your kids. Go have 3 kids or 2 kids. Let your breasts change because they're going to get ruined.
Yeah.
In most instances.
I didn't breastfeed, and after pregnancy, mine deflated, and I did not breastfeed.
Right.
They were just little flat balloons.
deflating.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not uncommon. And then resurface and consider what I want to do. But if you're a 20, like I have women that come to the office, they're 36, they're not with a life partner, and they've waited, and they're like, well, what if I don't meet someone for another 10 years? So you're going to give up the 10 best years of your life waiting for someone just in case? Mm-hmm. Just go do what you want to do and live your life. So these are existential questions to ask yourself. But in general, if you're about to have a child, it's better you just have your children, all of them, 1, 2, 3, 8, whatever, and then resurface for your breast surgery.
If you do breast, just my question now, on a 16-year-old who obviously she was in a serious situation, is there a chance that her breast will continue growing even after having the breast reduction?
Excellent question. It depends on the cause of the enlarged breast. Mm-hmm. So there are some girls who genetically their family have large breasts and their breasts are large and they do the breast reduction and they're out of the woods and they go live their lives. There are some who have hormonally driven, it's called like macromastia gigantism. They're very large, and it is quite possible that they'll return. But the reality is, it's like removing a tumor that comes back. You still needed the longevity and the quality of life, but most of the time it doesn't come back.
Well, when I was about to get my mommy makeover after I'd had my daughter, I knew I wasn't going to have any more children. I remember I was, working out and trying to lose weight, and my plastic surgeon said, get to a weight you can maintain. Don't lose all these ridiculous amounts of weight, then get the surgery, because then you'll gain the weight and it'll kind of mess up your results. And then we have this question from a woman who says, I want a breast reduction, but the insurance said I need to lose weight. I'm 5'3" and 160. I could lose weight, but my boobs have been the same size since I was 18. BMI shouldn't be a factor. What are your thoughts?
So it's a complicated situation because you've involved insurance. So first and foremost, understand that insurance is a game. their number one objective is not to pay. So they're going to make you jump through as many hoops until you go crazy. I can't breathe through my nose. Well, you need to go and prove that you have a deviated septum. I can't see from my eyelids. Well, you need to see 5 ophthalmologists that prove that your visual fields are obstructed. So large breasts are in the same category. So they have all these strict criteria because in some instances, being overweight does lead to larger breasts and larger everything. And so before they cough up what they consider the money, they want to make sure that you're not going to get smaller breasts by losing weight. In the overwhelming majority of women with really large breasts, losing 20 pounds isn't going to suddenly make your breast go from a G to a C. But be careful, because the overwhelming majority of insurance-based breast reductions are functionally effective and cosmetically hideous. Let me rephrase that. Breast reductions, from the standpoint of insurance and back pain and neck pain, is a medical necessity. My breasts are big. They hurt my neck. I have bra strap marks. I get infections under my breasts, and it's a medical necessity. Okay, understood. The overwhelming majority of surgeons who do breast reductions for your insurance aren't really paying much attention to whether or not they look good when we're done. They're going to be smaller, usually flat, usually square, and usually, in my humble opinion, unattractive. So if your goal is to have smaller breasts, but yet you want them to be attractive, which is the case in most instances, be careful when you seek a insurance-based reduction. It's usually not as good an outcome cosmetically.
Does every plastic surgeon accept insurance or no? I mean,
the majority don't. Let me rephrase that. The majority of talented surgeons don't.
Okay.
So I guess that's self-righteous. I don't accept insurance. It wasn't to suggest I'm talented.
I see what you're saying.
But the reason, what's the reason? The reason is that it is our choice as a nation. There's a triangle. The triangle is the provider, that's the doctor, the patient, and the insurance company. And so as a country, when insurance premiums, it's ironic, the insurance premiums have gone up, doctor reimbursement has gone down, and the only person benefiting is the insurance companies. So the average doctor who's trained somewhere on the order of 10 to 14 years from college to training to doing plastic surgery is going to get compensated nationally. Get ready, $2,500 for a breast reduction. You pay $2,500 for a session of filler. No doctor who is talented with medical bills and all the loans and family and overhead is going to do a 4-hour surgery for $2,500. It's just not going to happen. So the ones that do it are usually younger. They just started training. Are ones that do volume-based work, meaning they do high volume, so it doesn't matter. Or they're unusual and money is not of relevance to them. They don't care if they're whatever, which is fine and noble. But I would say the overwhelming majority of really talented surgeons are not going to do insurance-based surgeries because it's not worth it to run through all those hoops to be paid. An eyelid will be $700. A septoplasty and rhinoplasty will be $2,000, $1,800. It just doesn't make sense.
And then, do you want to do a couple more on the breasts? Because we did have a lot on breasts.
This is a good question. It's kind of sounds to me like a technical question, but can you pull fat from other places to inject for reconstruction after a double mastectomy?
So it's a great question. It's a very hot topic. The basic principle that they're asking is about fat transfer. Fat transfer. It's huge today. So basically the principle is as follows. We liposuction you, take fat from parts of your body, prepare it, put it in syringes, and then inject it in places in your body that need it. Wow, that sounds amazing. Win-win. Not so fast. So there's always a catch in my opinion, and here's the catch. So fat transfer became super popular with the BBL procedure, Brazilian butt lift, fat to the butt, the Kardashians, Little Kim. I don't know all these. I don't know all these people that are doing it. It's super popular.
We all know the big.
As a matter of fact, I've commented on many occasions on CNN and news networks on young women who have died during this procedure. So it's very popular, very controversial. So it has pushed the envelope on borrowing fat and putting it into places. The basic principle of fat transfer is very good. You can borrow fat judiciously and inject it in, say, the breast for breast cancer, the face for hollowness, the butt for dimples. But in high volumes, you got to borrow a lot of fat from everywhere. And the problem is the areas you borrow it from, the thighs, the legs, the arms, the back, the belly, they end up looking all wrinkled and ripply and loose skin after a year or two. So I personally don't like the procedure because I think you're stealing from Paul to pay Peter. Now, Peter is rich, but Paul is poor. Mm-hmm. So in the instance of the young lady who requested or asked about the breast cancer, yes, it's doable. It just requires to be careful that you're not overly skeletonizing the body, trying to take all the fat from everywhere.
Wow.
Well, since you did bring up the Brazilian butt lift, we hear some like tragic stories from women who are dying from their Brazilian butt lift procedures. Is it because they're getting shoddy plastic surgery, or is it because it's just such a risky procedure overall?
I mean, unfortunately and sadly, I had a patient of mine that I had operated on for other reasons, who's a very well-known influencer who went to South America and died.
Yeah.
Oh.
And this story, and by the way, you don't need to go to South America to die. I think like 20 women died in a matter of 6 months in Miami. So why is it that people are dying? So this procedure in particular is much more fatal than breast dogs and tummy tucks and other things because of the anatomy. So what happens is you take the fat and then you were injecting it into the butt. And many of these surgeons are not very skilled and not very concerned about being conservative. And they put a lot of fat into the butt. In doing so, they can accidentally puncture some of the very large blood vessels in the butt. The butt has some really large caliber vessels. And what happens is when you push the fat into those vessels, people die of what's called a fat embolus. So it would be the equivalent of getting a blood clot in your leg and getting a pulmonary embolus and dropping dead, except you're not getting a blood clot, but you're getting a fat clot. So that fat travels from the butt and in through the heart, and it lodges into the lungs. And in many instances, it's immediately fatal. And so it's a very underground procedure as well. So because it's very much liked by younger women who can't necessarily afford it, they go to these sketchy clinics because they really want it because it's so popular on social media.
Exactly.
And instead of going to a reputable guy who may be way outside their budget, they scrounge together what they can. And there's all these sort of fly-by-night, strip mall-esque procedure places, and they're getting injected. Not only fat, but like, who is it? I'm so bad with these names. One of these celebrities had cement put in her butt, and she's like near died. God, everybody will know what I'm talking about.
I know you're talking about too, but I can't think of the name. But I know you're talking about.
She's a rapper. Little Kim? I don't know. Anyways, she's gone on a million times and talked about Cardi B, was it? About how she's almost died from like cement or some other material from a hardware store that was injected.
How is? Oh gosh, I guess we can talk about that. It's just
up my squat game instead of going through all that misery.
Right.
Good grief.
Let's move on to another part of the body. Real quick one. We only had really one question about arms. Is someone wanted to know about getting rid of bat wings?
We had a friend who just did this, I think. Yeah.
Right. So there is removing skin from the legs and the arms, meaning I have extra skin, should only be done when you have a lot of it. If you have a little bit of skin in your arms and legs, unfortunately, the scar that's left behind is quite visible.
Yes.
Tummy tuck, very hidden. Breast dog, very hidden. Facelift, very hidden. Eyelid, very hidden. Nose job, very hidden. Arm lift, right in your eye. It's right along the whole length of the arm. Thigh lift, right along the inner thighs. So when do you do it? You do it when you lost 100 pounds. So I do a whole segment of work called massive weight loss surgery. So either by diet and exercise or by the help of bariatric surgery, like a gastric sleeve or a lap band, many people lose a massive amount of weight. I'm talking 75, 80, 120, 160 pounds. When you lose all that weight, unfortunately, you're left with a tremendous amount of sagging skin in the breast and the arms and the abdomen. So to answer your question, if you have a lot of skin in your arms, aka bat wings, the procedure is a brachioplasty. And it's very powerful, very effective, and very worth it when you have a lot of skin.
Yeah, but you are going to have a scar. But you know
Yeah,
what?
for that exchange, it's worth it.
For some people, it's worth it. All right, moving. I know we could spend hours talking to you, but we want to be respectful of your time. But we had so many questions. I think we should get to the mommy makeovers.
Sure.
That's what people really are writing about as well.
Yeah, go ahead, babe. Pick one up.
Okay. Very first of all, can I get a tummy tuck and then have a baby later, or is that a waste?
No, I mean, so again, you come in, you say, hey, Dr. Rahban, I've had 2 kids. I want a tummy tuck. What's the first question I ask you? Are you done having kids?
Yes.
You say, well, I'm 27. I've had 2 kids. I just got recently divorced. And the answer is yes, I'm done having kids. The answer is go for it, because you never know. But you might come back at 37, having met someone and decided you want to have another kid. So in that instance, you certainly can have a tummy tuck. It's not a waste, but don't expect your abdomen to look exactly the way it did before you had the baby. Having said that, the same girl comes in. I said, are you done having kids? Well, my husband and I think maybe in a year or 2. Well, then absolutely it's a waste of time. If you're going to have another baby in a year or 2, just go have another baby. But if you're not sure if you're ever going to have it, then go for it and see what life presents.
We had a couple of questions about dog ears.
I've never heard of that.
Well, I knew what they were talking about, but I'd never heard them called dog ears. But
Very true.
Dr. Rahban can give you the medical explanation, but this one person wanted to know, what are the chances of getting them after a tummy tuck, and can you really fix them in office without being sedated?
So great question. So let's start with Alan, because he's looking at me and saying, why are you operating on dogs? So I'm not a veterinarian, and I'm not doing Doberman pinchers and pit bull cleaving of their ears. So what it is essentially you get a tummy tuck, also known as an abdominoplasty, and you remove a football-shaped amount of skin, which is you put an incision low in the groin, and then you remove some degree of redundant or excess skin. And when you go to close it, you're closing a football. And the ends of the football, if not closed very well, create a lump or a redundancy of skin, which accumulates and makes a little kind of a cone look. It can be a little cone or it can be ginormous. That extra skin is so eloquently called a dog ear, which is basically a redundancy of skin so-called left over. Now, that dog ear should be 100% preventable. It requires your doctor to know how long to make your scar and how to close. So let's take the person who's had 4 kids. Lots of loose skin. She comes into your office and says, Dr. Rahban, I want a tummy tuck. Great, no problem. But I want a mini. I don't want a long scar. I want a small, short scar. But she has all this extra skin. So I foolishly agree to do a small scar. And what do you know, when we're done, she has redundancy of skin in the corners and she's mad as hell. So you have to know how long to cut out and then how to close it. Now, to answer the second part of the question is, depending on the size of the dog ear, yes, it can sometimes be repaired in the office, but you really shouldn't have one.
All right. Well, but it is fixable.
It is fixable, yes.
It is fixable. That's good to know. I want to be respectful of his time. I know we've had him for a long time.
I'm good whenever you guys want. My time is all yours.
Well, we've got a few more here, and I just want to. What stands out to you, honey?
Well,
Pick one.
there's one. I see the big word vagina right there. I guess we
knew
could
Oh.
address
I knew
that.
you was going to ask that one.
You asked
Oh.
your husband to pick one and he picked the vagina.
Isn't that
Okay.
crazy? Isn't that crazy?
When do you recommend getting it, and what does it entail? I'm assuming that's the
Vaginal rejuvenation.
vaginal rejuvenation.
All right, great. So, what is it and when to get it? So, first of all, vaginal rejuvenation is a broad term. So, we divide up the genitalia region into its particular anatomical parts. The majority of procedures that are done are called labioplasties. And labioplasties are referring to the labia, their inner labia, the inner lips of the vagina. And some people are just simply born with excess skin, asymmetry, and sometimes it occurs after delivery. The bottom line is it creates rashes. It's painful during intercourse. You can't wear clothes. You get infections, and it's embarrassing. So doing a labioplasty, as simple as a procedure it is incredibly powerful for a woman. Some women get it at 20 because they were born that way, and some people get it after they've had a bunch of kids. So that's the labia. The other parts are the inside, the actual vaginal entry point. That's called vaginal tightening or a vaginoplasty, and that's usually done after you've given birth a few times, because we just had our first child 3 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you
Wow.
very much. Thank you. And seeing a baby come out of a vagina never gets old. And it's an incredible feat of the human body, the female body.
How does that happen? Yeah.
It's just, you just got to turn to your mother and your wife, whoever has kids, and just give them a kiss, because a bowling ball comes out of the vagina. And so it's obvious that after several pregnancies, sometimes the muscle doesn't fully return. And so you can tighten up the sphincter or the circle, and that's a vaginoplasty. So there are also things like G-spots and all this other esoteric stuff that I don't think is worth talking about, but those are the two main procedures in the vaginal region.
Okay. There you go. And thank you for being very mature.
Where
during
else
that
are you going to get that
conversation.
information? Than
I mean,
on this
seriously,
podcast?
your show is going to explode.
Right. A couple more quick ones before we let you go.
Fire away.
We actually had a man write in with a question. What's your thoughts on calf implants for thinner-legged men?
So that's a very good question. There is a whole world of body implants: calves, biceps, pecs, buttocks. And so I don't do those procedures. Very subspecialized. There are individuals who do them, and I think it can be done. It depends on the individual. They are tricky. They do have a bit of a higher complication rate, but when executed very appropriately by the right surgeon who specializes in body implants, I think it can be effective. It just has to be done right. There's a guy, I think his name is Ken Barbie. There's a guy, an Asian guy.
Yes.
Oh my God, he's got it everywhere. His chest, his buys, his delts, his arms, his legs, his shoulders. I mean, he just looks, frankly, crazy. So obviously it can be overdone. But yeah, it's done. I just don't do them.
Did it have big scars there from the implants? Would that be noticeable?
No, they're actually really slick. They're put in very small incisions. A calf implant is put right behind the knee in the fold. You make an incision and slide it down into the calf.
Interesting.
There's some the buttock one is done from between the cleft of the buttock. There's some they're pretty slick. Just not for me.
So a butt implant is different than a Brazilian butt lift. A butt implant would be way safer if somebody was looking at an alternative, or no?
Different. So we started with the buttock implant. That was the origin. And the problem with the buttock implant was that you have a solid implant. Breast implants are not solid. So they're hard. You sit on your butt. You don't sit on your breast. And they tended to move and look really fake.
I saw somebody on Instagram. They were flipping their implant in their butt.
Right.
Did you see that one, Dr. Rahban? They were flipping it.
I've seen that, and it is not. They're not all that way, but certainly that is a problem that can happen.
So bad.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So that's what drove fat transfer, because you're like, well, it's soft and mushy like my own butt. But then, of course, it has all these complications. What do you notice is the common theme over the last hour? Conservatism. Find the right doctor. Do the right surgery. Do the right surgery the right way. When you do the right surgery the right way by the right surgeon, amazing things happen. BBLs can be safe. Buttock implants can be safe. When you end up in some shady place with some shady doctor doing some shady surgery, that's a lot of shade. And you're going to run into trouble. So that's the common theme here over and over again.
Well, Dr. Rahban, we literally could do a 2-part series.
We
with
really
you.
could. This is a lot of fun to talk
so
about.
Fascinating.
Well, I'm glad you like it.
But if you love what you heard here on A Sandwich and Some Lovin', we invite you to go check out Dr. Rady Rahban's own podcast. It's called Plastic Surgery Uncensored. We'll link it up in our show notes and everything. But Dr. Rahban, thank you so much for your time. I know you've had a long day, and now you get to go home to your new baby and have a longer night.
I am excited. We're excited. We're excited. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for allowing me the platform to share this information. I commend you guys because I know your show is very transparent and very forthright, and I think that's what people need more of. So I appreciate it. And hopefully maybe I can come back. Maybe people have some more Q&As for us.
Sure. We'd love to have you back.
We would love it because there were so many questions we didn't get
Yeah,
to.
we have
but
a lot of
I think we
questions.
covered a lot of good ones.
We covered some good ones. Yeah.
Thank you,
All right,
Dr.
guys.
Rahban.
Thank you, Dr. Rahban.
Pleasure. Be well. Thank you so much.
You too.
And that wraps up another episode of Plastic Surgery Uncensored. Thank you so much to Kellie and Alan for having me on your podcast, A Sandwich and Some Lovin'. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And as always, don't forget to download, subscribe, and most importantly, share this podcast with those you love, because as always, without you, there's no purpose of me being here. Until next week, I'm your host, Dr. Rady Rahban.
Thank you for listening to Plastic Surgery Uncensored with Dr. Rady Rahban. We would love your feedback. If you enjoyed this episode, or if you find our podcast helpful, tell us why. Leave us a review and make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a topic you would like for us to discuss in an upcoming episode, please reach out to us on Instagram at Dr. Rady Rahban, on Facebook at Rady Rahban, or at RadyRahban.com.